Now, in this segment, Roger and I choose 2 apps or software solutions that can make life easier as a marketer and content creator. So, Roger, what have you chosen this week?
Okay. App, platform, website number 1 is called Mixkit. Now, this is a bit like one that you mentioned in an earlier episode of the show. You drew my attention to pexels.com, which is a website where you can download B-roll footage and photographs which are royalty free, so you can use them in your videos without having to pay any copyright fees. Now, I come across Mixkit, which actually is a variation on a theme. They do have video, which you can use for B-roll, and some of it's nice, some of it's really good, and they do have an extensive supply of photographs. But what really drew my attention to Mixkit was the templates that they have for the various editing software programs for video. Now, I had a bit of a rant about Adobe Premiere Pro on the last episode of the show, but if you use Adobe Premiere Pro, Mixkit have got some fabulous templates. Everything from, those snazzy little subscribe buttons and bell buttons that you can put onto YouTube videos, right down to professional introductions like we have on the Two Geeks in a Marketing podcast video version. So yeah, Mixkit, I think it's that focus on the templates that really drew my attention to it, as opposed to the videos and the photographs. But well worth checking out if you're into video production, into video editing, and you just want to have something that's copyright free and instantly available to download. Now, Pascal, I do have to admit that the next one is a little bit of a con because something happened to me last week. It's a nice little story, and I want to tell this story on the podcast. It will lead to a piece of tech, but I think the story is well worth telling. Now, a few weeks ago, I've been scrambling around looking for podcasts, looking for new music to listen to, and a friend of mine told me, go and listen to a band called Gandalf's Fist. Now, if somebody told you to go and listen to a band called Gandalf's Fist, you would immediately think that sounds interesting, wouldn't you? It brings up in your head Lord of the Rings, it's perhaps all fantasy based, etc. So I went and looked this group up, and as this person expected, I absolutely love this music. It's prog rock, modern prog rock. I guess the technical name for it is neo-prog rock. And they released an album in 2016 called The Clockwork Fable, which is about 3.5 hours long. So it's a hell of a listen. And I've absolutely absorbed this album. I've been listening to it in the car. I've been listening to it at home, in the bath, when I've been doing workouts, whatever. But there's been something niggling me about the lead vocalist in some of the tracks, this female. And you know what it's like when you get it in your head and think, where have I heard this lady before? So obviously Google's your friend, Gandalf's Fist, vocalist. This lady's called Melissa Hollick. So I think, well, that doesn't ring a bell. So I Googled further, which other groups has she sung in? And here's a list of the groups, and well, I don't recognise any of those groups, so where have I heard this lady's voice before? It's really started to bug me. And I was sat in my favourite cafe the other day having a cup of coffee, and I was just about to publish the Marketing and Finance podcast for that week, and that's when the penny dropped. This lady, Melissa Hollick, did the introductory voiceover for the first 100 episodes of my podcast. Seriously, Pascal. And obviously it was I just didn't connect. I mean, I'm up to episode 252 now, so it's actually quite a while ago since she stopped doing it. But the fact of the matter, and bringing it sort of full circle to marketing tech, is that I originally went onto Fiverr.com back in 2014, and I went through a list of people who do voiceovers for podcasts, and here was Melissa Hollick, and I think I paid her $25 for the rights to use her introduction on my podcast, and I stuck with it for 100 episodes. So, you never know You
That
go on to something like Fiverr, and all of a sudden I can say, hey, I've got a vocalist from a rock album doing my introduction.
Well, maybe that should be part of your own PR stunt,
Yeah.
for your series. But what a story! And to be honest with you, I'm so glad that you found her, because that would have just got you demented for weeks and months, racking your brain about who she was and so on. But yeah, Fiverr, a fantastic website. I mean, I think we've all had the pleasure of using some of the services. But so two things: fantastic two choices and an amazing story. I mean, do you think you should maybe go back and start to promote your your podcast, saying "and with introduction by," and using her name as a way to get more coverage?
Well, that's a good idea. Maybe I should just bring her vocal introduction back, because I took the decision. I think from episode 100 onwards, I got another vocal introduction from Fiverr as well, and then from about episode 150 onwards, I've just been doing the introduction myself. In hindsight, I think she probably has a better voice than me.
Absolutely. Well, you might find that the fans may actually want to purchase maybe a copy of the introduction done by her. Wow, that's wow. I mean, what a story! This is amazing. Well, listen, let me take you into my two choices for this week.
Okay.
One is a kind of software solution for your laptop for audio production, and one is a mobile phone app for video production. The first one is called Audio Hijack by a company called Rogue Amoeba, which I think is a fantastic name. And Audio Hijack is a solution that I bought many years ago, but I forgot about it. So in a way, by working with you, Roger, on Two Geeks and Marketing podcast, I found that I myself to be reconnected with my old toys. I feel very guilty, and I feel like that kid from Toy Story that puts everything in a box and gives it away. And now, Audio Hijack is a wonderful platform, as I've rediscovered, because it's very visual. And sometimes some of those software solutions is just a long list of tick boxes and drop down buttons and that kind of things. And sometimes it can be very, very hard to understand what you're doing with your workflow. Audio Hijack is like a flow chart mixed with a mind map, where you can really, by using symbols and squares, you can drag and drop. You can put together a workflow. You can decide where is a sound coming from. You can have multiple sources. You could come from a microphone. You could come from Zoom. You could come from Skype. And then you can put it together into an output, which would be your file. But then in between, you can drag and drop some audio kind of improvements. In my case, a denoiser. It could be that you want to increase the trebles or the bass. You can do so many different things. But the power of Audio Hijack, Roger, is that it's visual. So in a way, you don't have to be a technician to understand how to put together your workflow. You select on the right-hand side menu and you drag and you drop into a central pane, a window, and then everything there in front of you. Then you can double click within those little symbols and you can have more options. So I've re-become, if you like, a big fan of Audio Hijack, purchased many years ago, but somehow, as is often the case, moved away from it. The second solution, which actually was inspired by your comment about the Adobe Premiere Rush, about simplicity and what you can do. Now, there's a company out there called Filmora that provide a solution for video production, which I think is a great way to start to understand video editing. But they also have an app version called Vlog It, vlog as in vlogging, and then IT. And it's a really, really powerful mobile phone app, Roger. You can do overlays, you can do text very simply. More importantly, you can also do narration, which I think is where its power comes from. So you could be recording something, you could be editing something, and then once it's finished, you can literally play it and then record your voice over and then create, a finished product. But also this idea of, very disposable social media content that doesn't need necessarily a lot of work. I think Vlog It by a company called Filmora, who has, again, a whole suite of software solution, could be a great addition. So there you have it, audio production or video production. I thought there would be two worthy kind of solutions for people to consider.
Welcome to Marketing, Tech and Apps. This is the part of the show where Pascal and I choose one or two pieces of technology. Could be an app, could be a platform, could be a website, and we share it with each other and with you, the listeners and the users. So Pascal, you're in the firing line. What have you got for me this week?
So this week, Roger, I'm going for visual expression. Creativity. Okay. We just mentioned that a moment ago. So you'll be familiar with a platform called Canva, perhaps?
Oh, yes.
So I wanted to kind of explore other options, because the risk and the danger, of course, is that eventually people on the web play the game of spot the Canva created visual. And there's nothing wrong with that. What I would say actually about Canva before I move on to my solutions, Roger, is that platform has improved really a lot for the last few weeks and few months. So for those of you who are using Canva, I would do an exercise of clicking on some of the buttons and features that you don't use on a regular basis. You may discover something brand new. But ultimately, Roger, we're here to get someone's attention. We're here to create some sense of novelty, to use the term that I use with Ranch Fishkin's article review. And I've got two platforms that can allow you to look perhaps a little different. The first one is concerned with speed of execution. Sometimes all of us have to work a bit faster. And Buffer, which is known for the social media kind of publishing platform and scheduling platform, has a discrete product called Pablo by Buffer. That's the full name, Pablo, as in Paul in Spanish. Pablo by Buffer is a very, very simplified version of what Canva can do for you. You can create visuals for social media using portrait, landscape, and square formats. You can add photography. You can add text, but the interface is so simple that you work very, very fast. So if you need some time to a bit more discipline and structure, Roger, with your activities online, I would consider Pablo by Buffer. Now, on the other side of the scale, sometimes you do something a bit more involved. I'm going to say an infographic or a visual story. And there's a platform called Visme, V-I-S-M-E, visme.com. And it allows you, using, again, a dashboard, which is very user-friendly, to create some pretty detailed infographics, often based on data, as well as key concept. They have a multitude of icons. You can use different colors, and so on and so forth. And they have, of course, a free and paid version. But what is nice about Visme, the style, the colors, and the iconography is very different to Canva. You could not actually get confused. And I thought that was just a nice little addition to someone's toolkit to have Visme.com on one hand for infographics and visual stories, and Pablo by Buffer, which again will look very, very different. So there you have it, different ways for visual expression.
Well, I definitely use Canva a lot. So I'm probably one of the people who should check out these alternatives, Pascal. So I've got a similar theme this week, actually. Right. It's all about, again, stuff that you can use in your content. Now, very early on when I was doing vlogging, I got myself into a little bit of trouble. And it was a bit inadvertent in that I'd been speaking at a conference. It was actually the Upreneur Summit, which we know and love. Chris Ducker's a friend of ours, well, more a friend of yours than mine, I suppose. You've known him for many, 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 many years. But you were very kind at that conference to film me when I was on stage. And I included within my vlog the bit where I walked up onto the stage after Chris Ducker had introduced me. And literally in the vlog, it was about 8 seconds. But Chris had been playing a piece of music in the background at the conference. And YouTube picked up on that piece of music instantly and gave me a copyright strike. Now, I thought there was something called, you had a bit of leeway for maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds for copyright stuff. Fair usage, I think they call it. But no, I got absolutely clobbered. And it made me realize how important it is to make sure that music you use in videos is not copyright and there are no royalties to be paid. Now, you can get royalty-free music from YouTube, but it's not a massive collection. And I've been using for the last couple of years something called Epidemic Sound. Love the name of that, Epidemic Sound. And you pay for it. It's about £90 a year. But whilst you're paying for it, you can use their music in perpetuity. So even if you join Epidemic Sound for 1 year and you use a load of their music during that year in your videos, it's yours forever for that video, as long as it was created during the time that you were a member of Epidemic Sound. And you know, some of this music that they have is so well produced. I have actually started listening to some of it almost like I would on Spotify. I see an album by an artist on Epidemic Sound, and it's as good as a mainstream artist. And in fact, they've just started publishing their stuff on Spotify. So you can listen to Epidemic Sound stuff as legitimate music on Spotify. That's why I love it so much. There's some great stuff on there. Second thing is a website called Unsplash. And Unsplash is all about photographs. And this one you don't have to pay for. It's totally royalty free. Now, as you know, Pascal, I'm not a big fan of massive PowerPoint presentations, especially those PowerPoint presentations that are heading bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. I tend to like to have a photograph with maybe 1 or 2 words on the slide. And sometimes, you know, finding photographs to use in slides can be a bit of a pain, and a lot of them look very staged and very, you know, just too corporate or too cheesy. Unsplash is effectively just photographers like you and I who are taking photographs on either phones or decent cameras, and you can just find whatever you need, put it in your PowerPoint presentation, and you don't have to worry about anybody getting you for copyright theft or anything like that. And there's some really, really good stuff on there. So Epidemic Sound for music, Unsplash for photographs.
Superb. And I can see why you would suggest that it was similar to my kind of theme of being different or surprising your audience with something different. Can I just check with Epidemic Sound, do they give you access to, you know, sometimes what you need is just like 10 seconds for an intro element of a video. Sometimes you need something much longer. Do they have different length, or is it usually one track for you to edit down as you see fit?
Well, you can do whatever you like, Pascal. Most tracks are available as an instrumental only. Then there's usually one with vocals. There's usually what they call a sting version of each track as well,
right,
which is usually about between 10 and 20 seconds long. So I do use the stings quite a lot as well, but I'll often just edit the music down into the video anyway. Or sometimes I'll use the instrumental version of the song during the video, and then at the end, when I put my sort of end credit on, I'll actually use the vocal version so that it's the same piece of music, but it just sounds different. And what you can also do, which I really like, is that you can actually download the track either in its entirety, or they'll download it by layer. So you get the drum track, you get the guitar track, you get the keyboard track, you get the vocal track, you get whatever the tracks are, you can get them separately. So if you just want the drum beat, you can get the drum beat. If you just want the guitar riff, you get the guitar riff, or you get the whole track. So it's really well worth investing that £90 a year to get access to such great content.
You're absolutely right, because actually one of the things that I do recommend when I get involved with video marketing consultancy is that the music, you know, becomes a signature for who you are, what you stand for. But so often the audience just needs a hint. That's what they do, of course, in film production. You could be watching, you know, a film. If we use, for example, the recent Picard series with Star Trek, you know, sometimes it's just the drums here, or just this, but it all kind of brings, you know, that whole universe together. So I'm impressed, Roger. I mean, for what they're charging to give you all those layers and split the tracks and so on, it's just incredible. Now, in this segment, once again, Roger and I surprise each other with our selection of tech and app that can make life easier for all of us out there who are building brands via the internet. So, Roger, what are your suggestions and recommendations for today?
Well, Pascal, I've got a bit of a travel theme going on this week, and also a little bit of an apology, because my first piece of tech isn't really anything to do with marketing, but it is a lot to do with me being a bit of a travel geek. And I just want to tell you about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now, this piece of software has gone through many, many iterations on all different versions of PCs, going way, way back to the very early days of Windows, where you could effectively fly a plane that just looked like it was made out of a few pieces of white stick on a black background. It was really, really basic graphics. And Microsoft haven't actually issued a flight simulator update for probably, I think it's about 12 years. Sorry, I should have checked the exact figure there. I think it's about 12 years. But there's been a lot of build up to this new launch, which has just happened in the last week or two, and it's Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now, the first thing I will say is it's not a game. So anybody out there who just wants to fly a plane easily, this is genuinely a flight simulator. It is as good as those big flight simulators that pilots learn how to fly planes in. It is that accurate, and therefore it is hellishly hard. The learning curve is massive, and it's going to take me and presumably everybody else who's not a pilot, it's going to take us a hell of a long time to get used to this. The second thing is the graphics are incredible. And what Microsoft have done is they've come up with this clever idea where the program effectively sucks the data out of Microsoft's maps as part of the Bing search engine, and it creates the world from real maps, whereas obviously in the past it was all created from graphics. So literally, if you've got a decent PC, and my PC is about 4 years old and it's running it all right. If you've got a decent PC and you go up as high as you can in the settings, it's literally photorealistic. You can fly over your own house. You can fly over local landmarks. You can fly over absolutely perfect renditions of New York, London, and all the big cities. And it's just incredible. It's just incredible how accurate and detailed this really is. It is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And it really is just like flying an aircraft, being in an aircraft and looking out of the window. So well done, Microsoft Flight Simulator. The only downside is it takes about half an hour to boot the program up. There's so much data involved in it. So you literally have to press the icon and then go away and do something else for half an hour. Well,
that's your own version of the flight check. It's like most aircraft would take half an hour before they could leave the airport.
You're absolutely right. You're just waiting for an air traffic control slot. So that's exactly what it was. So having rediscovered Microsoft Flight Simulator, it did get me thinking again about what will happen when we start getting back to travel. Now, that doesn't seem to be on the short-term horizon, but before lockdown, quite a lot of my speaking engagements involved multiple travel via cities. So living in Edinburgh, and similar to yourself, living down in Durham, Pascal, most of your flights internationally might have to go via London because, yes, you can fly direct from Edinburgh and from Newcastle, but often you have to route through another city. And I came across this it's a website and an app, and it's called Skiplagged, which is a bit of a weird name for a travel app, but it's the best one for coming up with multiple city itineraries. So if I want to go from Edinburgh to somewhere like Belgrade in Serbia or Podgorica in Montenegro, I'll just put the departure point, the arrival point, and it will give me the routings, often with 1, 2, maybe even 3 different flights. And then it will rank them, obviously, in terms of expense, class, economy, business, all of that sort of thing, days of the week. And it's it's one of those apps which you can actually just go on and play if you're a bit of a travel nut and you just want to see what routes it might come up with. I'll start in Edinburgh and I want to end up in Grenada in the Caribbean, see how it comes. And it's just quite nice sometimes to see what it suggests. So as we get back into travel, if you're like me and you often have to travel via London or via Manchester or something like that, try out Skiplagged. It's really good, and it often comes up with a very interesting itinerary.
Well, here's a challenge for you then, Roger. I think that the very next time you go on a flight, you should, as part of your Rog Vlog episode, have a moment where you're using the platform, then getting on the flight and so on. And for some of you who have not watched any of the Rog Vlog episode, do so, because I think you probably have used every single bit of form of transport known to man. I don't know if you've done a ferry yet review, because you're on the train, you've done flying. I know you've done
no, I don't think I've done a
car.
ferry.
So I think
Not done a ferry.
You need to do a ferry.
Pascal, I was even thinking, I haven't been on a plane for ages. I was even thinking of doing almost like a spoof episode of Rog Vlog where I pretend to go to the airport and I pretend to get on a plane, but actually all I'm doing is doing a screen recording of me flying somewhere on Microsoft Flight Simulator.
I think you should do that, absolutely. Now, listen, Roger, as you know, but our audience should know, is that we don't talk to each other about both the content spotlights and the marketing tech and apps. So it's a surprise. I've chosen Microsoft products as well for today, which is kind of interesting.
Minds.
Now, let me give you a bit of anecdote. So a while back, I was asked if I could help somebody, a coffee in the chat moment, which I know you've done as well. You know, people say, listen, I'm a bit stuck. I think it was all to do with understanding Facebook a bit better. It was to do with social media. So we agreed to go on Zoom, coffee in the chat, no obligation to buy. And can I just say, Roger, if you'd allow me, I was on fire. I really did a good job to essentially share advice, give people a structure, give people a bit of a blueprint. And when the call was over, you know what I thought, right? I thought, damn, I should have recorded this, because that would have been at the heart maybe of a blog post or of an article, even a white paper. That's a challenge. When Microsoft Word online have just released about 2-3 weeks ago now a AI-powered dictation and transcription as part of Microsoft Word. So as far as I understand it, you have to use the online version. I think it's called 365. Sometimes it's called Live. Sometimes it's called OneDrive. It's very confusing. But if you use the online version of your Microsoft Office package, then you will see a microphone icon on the toolbar. If you click on that, you can choose dictation. So in the case of the anecdote of me talking via Zoom to somebody, I could have the window open, and it would literally transcribe, my words. I've done the test, Roger, and I have to tell you, it's really impressive. I even did a test where I spoke really fast with a very strong French accent. I was like a character from Allo Allo, and it was still picking up, the language. So you can imagine then all you have to do is edit down and kind of work on the structure of your content. The transcription, I'm not convinced. So what you can do with it is you can upload an MP3 or a WAV file, and then you go through, behind the scenes, the kind of data crunching, and then return back the transcription. That wasn't so good. So the compromise I found was, what you remember a moment ago I was mentioning Robert Rose and the podcast. I actually went on YouTube to look at the video version. So on one window I was playing the YouTube video of Robert Rose talking, and in the other I had Microsoft Word, and he was transcribing by picking up the sound from the laptop speakers. So that's a good one. So have a look at this. The next one, still a Microsoft product, I'm going to go into PowerPoint. Now, as I was kind of discovering about Microsoft Word, I remembered, which I think says a lot about how much I forget at the moment, that on the online version of PowerPoint, Roger, there's an AI-powered subtitling and translation feature. So here's the scene. You are presenting maybe at a conference virtually. You have some slides on PowerPoint. They are shown via the live version of Microsoft PowerPoint, and as you talk, your words are then captioned at the bottom part of the slide. Now, what would you want to do that? Maybe some people are watching your presentation without sound, Roger, or maybe some of them, because I know you traveled extensively in Eastern Europe, the English is a second language. That just supports them understanding what you're talking about. But there's the thing. If they want to, they can join your live presentation and choose a language that would then be translated into. So someone could actually say, at the end of the day, my English is still, not what it could be. So I'm going to choose for this to be translated in French, in Spanish, in Hungarian, and so on and so forth. And they are adding languages all the time. And I have to tell you, now that we are going to be doing more online, I think we will go back to some form of attending physical events, but I think the online will dominate for quite some time. The option from the customer service point of view to say, well, I'll tell you what, my version is Microsoft PowerPoint Live, and if you want to, you can choose a translation. That would be so powerful.
It is really powerful, isn't it? It's incredible, actually. And actually, if you think about it, transcriptions and all of that sort of thing, our go-to resources for the last few years have been things like Rev and Temi. And actually, when you think about it, Microsoft, with its Office package being around for so long, you would have thought that they would have been at the cutting edge of this. So in reality, even as powerful as this is, it has actually taken them a while to catch up. But it's actually nice now that it will all be available within the same package.
And it's so rare to mention Microsoft and innovation side by side, bless them. So I think that's just great. But, wow. This is where I get excited about artificial intelligence, when it's really adding such great value to what we do. So have it, Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint. Go online, find the live version, and see if the audio elements can help you create better content faster.
Fantastic.